I Spit on Your Grave 2010. So I Spit on Your Grave 2010 is the remake to the 1978 version that was titled the same exact thing. I have never seen the original version, so I think it's fair for me to mention that because I feel like if you've maybe seen the original one and watching this one, you probably would have a much different perspective than I do. So I wanted to bring that up just because my perspective is probably a lot different since I haven't seen the original. So I Spit on Your Grave 2010 is directed by Stephen R. Monroe, and I've seen it on a lot of disturbing movie lists. I always go to different disturbing movie lists to look for videos. I've definitely taken notice to the channel that a lot of you guys do like it when I do the disturbing movies like Tusk, the Human Centipede trilogy. I've done like a couple other ones. As long as you guys are liking them and you keep on viewing them and stuff, I'll keep on doing them because clearly to me that's a sign saying you guys like it when I suffer and watch these disturbing movies. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm not complaining, guys. I'm not complaining. Also, this movie does have a lot of disturbing scenes in it and very disturbing scenes. But I've rambled enough, guys. I've been rambling this whole time. It's time to get into the plot. So with that being said, let's do just that and let's get right into the plot of the movie. I Spit on Your Grave begins with showing us our protagonist, Jennifer Hills, played by Sarah Butler, driving in her car. She is an upcoming novelist who is moving away from the very busy New York City to a much more quiet Louisiana. On the way to her cabin, she stops at the place to retrieve her keys where she meets Earl, the owner of the cabin she is staying in. After getting lost again, she stops at a gas station to fill up and get help. A group of guys start to get her attention and are clearly making her uncomfortable. A man abruptly gets Jennifer's attention. He appears to be nice and introduces himself as Johnny and redirects Jennifer to the cabin. Johnny shoots a pickup line at Jennifer, to which she laughs at, making fun of it. When he tries to help her with gas,
I got that.
Oh, I got it.
No, I got it. I'm sorry, my dad.
Johnny is clearly not having his best day. She leaves the gas station and heads to her cabin. Once she arrives at the cabin, she unpacks her items and gets working on writing. When Jennifer is sunbathing, she hears something in the distance, but it seems to just have been a flock of birds. That night, while Jennifer is on the phone while sitting on the porch, she hears loud thuds in the distance. She goes out to the shed to see what's going on, and the door is left open. When she goes back to her seat on the porch, she accidentally spills red wine on her clothes, and she goes inside to try to get it off. While doing this, we learn someone is recording her and stalking her. The following morning, Jennifer goes on a morning run where she sees an abandoned cabin. She goes inside for a little, then decides to leave and finish her run. When she gets home and tries to use the sink, dirty water comes out, so she calls the plumber. The plumber's name is Matthew, played by Chad Lindbergh, who is mentally disabled and stutters. After fixing the clog, Jennifer gives him a kiss in excitement, to which Matthew walks off in shock. The movie cuts to the gang of guys from earlier. We see Johnny, played by Jeff Branson, Andy, played by Rodney Eastman, and Stanley, played by Daniel Franzese. Stanley is recording the guys using a bat to kill a fish they caught. This scene also reveals who was recording and stalking Jennifer. It just so happens that Matthew is friends with the gang of guys. When he tells them he got a kiss for servicing her, Johnny gets jealous. Johnny is just such an unlikable guy. I mean, clearly she kissed him just because she wanted to be nice to him. She clearly saw he was mentally disabled. Obviously, Johnny should know that when she kissed him, it was just a sign of being nice and stuff, not any romantic sign. If anything, it was a friend zone kiss in my opinion. But anyway, Johnny is so like, oh my gosh, she kissed Matthew. Like, it's such a big deal. Like, it's an insane piece of news.
She even gave him a kiss for servicing her.
Bullshit.
No, she did, Johnny. She kissed me.
Hey, Matthew. Don't you lie to me.
I don't know how he doesn't have the common sense to like, yeah, I get he's jealous and he's just that type of guy, but still, maybe if she kissed one of the other two friends, that would be one thing. But I mean this in the most non-disrespectful way, but she obviously did not kiss Matthew in a romantic way, and all the viewers know that. Then Stanley shows them the tape from earlier where Jennifer spilled wine on her clothes and is washing it off. Johnny seems very turned on by this and sits back in anger and jealousy. They talk about how she is just a stuck-up city girl. Johnny's ego is clearly hurt and he declares he can get her back, and that girls like that only have one purpose. It's ridiculous to me how Johnny wants to assault an innocent girl just based off of the fact that she made fun of his pickup line, because she kissed Matthew, and because he saw this tape of her and thinks she's so sexy or whatever. I find that ridiculous. The fact that those three events were his trigger point to shapeshifting from an asshole to a perverted, disgusting criminal asshole is just mind-blowing. Back at the cabin, Jennifer is writing some more, then decides to go to her bag and grab a joint, to which she smokes and falls asleep. Jennifer wakes up to the sound of footsteps. When she goes to the front door, she sees a dead bird. Then, when she gets back to her laptop, she sees the background was changed to a selfie of the three guys from earlier. Right as this happens, the three guys reveal themselves along with Matthew. She tries to tell them that her boyfriend will be there soon, but they know she is lying. She then begs them to leave, but they do not listen. She then makes a deal that she will take a drink of the vodka and then they must leave, to which they agree. She takes a swig, but they say it was weak and then make her chug the alcohol for a while. After this, she apologizes to Johnny for embarrassing him the other day, but he doesn't care. Johnny then tells Jennifer to show him her breast. After she refuses, he starts getting more rough with her and then hits her on the head with his bat. Matthew clearly is not in favor of what's going on, and then Johnny tells Matthew he can prove himself to them. Andy says he's not waiting for that and puts the bottle in replace of his privates and yells at her to suck in a very weird and uncomfortable scene. She grabs the bottle, hits him in the leg, and then escapes out the front door. As she is running through the woods, she runs into Sheriff Storch, played by Andrew Howard, and Earl, the owner of her cabin. She tells the sheriff what happened and how she was assaulted, and they drive back to the cabin. When they both get there, he sees all the alcohol, and then unfortunately, he finds the joint. He begins to doubt her story and calls in for backup. Then the sheriff tells Jennifer to go to the wall and pats her down in a very creepy way. After this, he puts Jennifer in a chokehold and tells her to tell him everything the guys did to her. Right as this happens, Johnny along with his friends walk in, revealing the sheriff is disgusting and perverted just like all the other guys. He gets his gun and touches Jennifer's privates with it and then gets her to her knees. When she slaps Storch, he slaps her back harder, and then Johnny yells at Matthew to take off his clothes. But when the guys keep on bringing up the fact that he is a virgin, he agrees. They get her in the position, and in an awful scene, Matthew does the unforgivable. Storch's phone rings and it's his daughter. They then cover Jennifer's mouth up but keep going as the officer tells his daughter he will be home late tonight. The guys eventually bring Jennifer out to the woods where Storch and the rest of the guys take their turns. Stanley records everything with his recorder. Yeah, overall the segments of Jennifer being assaulted are just very disturbing. They really get you hating these people because like I wanted to punch my laptop scene during the entire scene. I was like in that much anger. It was honestly awful. Like, it was that frustrating. You hate these guys. You hate this sheriff. You hate them all. The movie cuts some time, and Jennifer can be seen walking very slowly, completely naked, with the guys following her, laughing at her. Storch gets his gun ready to kill her, but since they are on a bridge, Jennifer jumps. The guys quickly look over the edge, but cannot see her. Storch, getting anxious, tells the guys that they will look up and down the river, checking every bank until they find find the corpse of Jennifer. The movie cuts to the guys looking through the river, but they have no luck. Storch tells them they will check the river twice every day, taking shifts until he says so. Also, he sees Stanley messing with his recorder, to which he grabs the tape and smashes it, then yells at Stanley. The guys then burn all of her belongings to hide any evidence. During this, Johnny tells them they need to keep a close eye on Matthew until they find her body. Storch arrives home and can be seen talking to his wife and daughter. His daughter tells him that she was accepted into honor society. The next day, Storch drops off the cabin keys to Earl, telling him Jennifer left for good. Matthew is clearly feeling guilty as he is isolating himself and reimagining the events. The movie cuts to him sitting alone in the forest, snapping his wrist with his rubber bands, and then he sees Jennifer. However, it was most likely a hallucination, at least it seems. It cuts to black, and then you hear Matthew's screams echo. The movie jumps some time and cuts to Storch, who is watching TV with his wife. They get a phone call and it is from Earl. Earl tells Storch about Jennifer and that the girl who left a month ago has not been seen since. The movie cuts to the guys and they see Stanley running, yelling, "It's gone, it's gone." He tells them the tape is missing with all the footage on it. He tells them that the one the sheriff stomped on was a new tape. The original one was saved. After telling them this, Johnny grabs Stanley and chokes him. The following night, while watching TV, Johnny hears something thrown against his house. When he goes to check it out, it is a dead bird, just like what they did to Jennifer. After it happens again, Johnny grabs his gun and yells for the person to show themselves. When it happens a third time, he goes outside, shoots his gun, and screams for the person to come out. He then notices a flip-flop on the floor. When he looks back up, he sees movement in the bushes. Then he runs toward the bushes and sees Matthew's wrist rubber bands on the ground. The movie cuts to the next day where the officer bought some flowers for his wife. She then asks him for some help and says a tape arrived in the mail but would not fit into their machine. When he sees the tape, he realizes it's the tape of him and the guys. The wife then says she assumes it's their daughter's dance recital video. Clearly mad, Storch tells his wife he will be right back. Andy and Stanley arrive at Johnny's where he tells them about Matthew leaving stuff at his doorstep. As he is telling them this, Storch can be seen speeding to their house. When he arrives, he immediately gets out and screams at Stanley, shoving the tape into his mouth. Then Storch points his gun at Stanley, to which Johnny intervenes. He tells Storch that Matthew is the one who took the tape and then shows him the flip-flop to which Matthew allegedly threw at his door. Storch takes the tape and throws it into a nearby fire and then tells them they better find Matthew today or he will bring God's wrath upon them. The movie cuts to Storch hunting with Earl, and unexpectedly he shoots Earl, clearly to eliminate possible risks and implications, along with tying up loose ends. Next we see Matthew going to the cabin to see if Jennifer is still alive and to apologize. As he walks up the stairs, he slips and then falls. When he wakes up, he sees Jennifer and says he knew she was alive. She then tells him to come over to her. Matthew goes over to Jennifer and then she says how she knows it was not his fault. He then starts crying into her lap, saying how sorry he is and that he is so sorry. As he is distracted, Jennifer grabs a nearby rope and then chokes Matthew. She then screams that's not good enough and drags him. Stanley and Andy are looking for Matthew. They eventually stumble across an abandoned house and Andy goes inside to look. While this happens, Jennifer reveals herself to Stanley, and when he runs at her, his legs get caught into a bear trap. He screams for Andy, and when he eventually gets to him, Jennifer sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. For Stanley's fate, he is tied to a tree, and then she sticks fishing wires onto his eyelids so he cannot move and his eyes will dry out, and then she records him, forcing him to watch it. As for Andy, he is tied up and she waterboards him. She then goes back to Stanley and he begs her to help him and says his eyes can't take it anymore. She then shoves fish guts shuts into his mouth until he pukes, and he starts to give in to the boiling hot water, and his face is already severely burned and he is running out of energy. Birds can be seen feeding on Stanley, and she leaves the guys to die. She then poses at the gas station to get Johnny's attention, and when she turns around, she knocks him out. He wakes up tied in some abandoned place. She uses pliers to pull out some of his teeth and then grabs a revolver and threatens him with it. Johnny starts laughing at her, to which Jennifer grabs a garden tool and then plies his dick off. She picks up the dismembered dick and then shoves it into the dude's mouth. He chokes on it and eventually spits it out. He screams in pain and agony, and Jennifer leaves him to a painful fate. Eventually, Johnny dies. Jennifer visits Storch's family and poses as a teacher who is with his daughter's honor society. While Storch is on the phone with his wife, Jennifer reveals herself and Storch slams on the brakes and speeds home, realizing his fate. When he gets home and asks his wife where their daughter is, she says she went to the park with her teacher, Mrs. Hills. When he gets to the park, nobody is there, and when he gets back into his car, Jennifer pulls a classic Michael Myers and knocks him out. He wakes up in the abandoned house tied down with a shotgun up his butt. There appears to be a string tied to the trigger. When Jennifer walks into the room, he starts crying and saying please. She then compares herself to his innocent daughter and says she's no different. She then goes behind him and shoves the gun up his butt very hard repeatedly while calling him a pervert. Jennifer takes the string that would trigger the shotgun and ties it around Matthew's hands, who is revealed to be under a blanket, unconscious in the room. She leaves the room, and when Matthew wakes up, immediately goes to help Storch, to which triggers the shotgun that is up his butt and shoots through him, through his face, and then hits Matthew, killing them both. When Jennifer hears the sound of the shotgun, a small smirk can be seen on her face. The end. Overall, I Spit on Your Grave was definitely an interesting watch. The movie has a very basic and skeletal plot. It has a simple yet dark revenge story that leaves the viewer in shock and feeling strange. The entire movie you're waiting for Jennifer to reveal herself, for karma to hit the group of guys, but when it finally hits, you're left with a bittersweet taste in your mouth. You want to feel happy that she got revenge and took justice into her own hands. But the brutality of the killings make you concerned and worried about Jennifer's mental health in the end, and that what the guys did to her ended up making a monster out of her. While you hope at the end of the movie that smirk she has on her face is just satisfaction and relief that she got rid of all her predators, but for some reason you kind of feel uneasy with that smirk because you feel like it might be her wanting to continue the spree. As for positives, the movie was beautifully shot with a very serious tone. When it comes to acting, you can tell the actors are giving it their all, at least in regards to the main cast, not including the side friends. I found Sarah Butler, who played Jennifer, Andrew Howard, who played Storch, the dude who played Johnny, Jeff Branson, and the guy that played Matthew, Chad Lindbergh, were definitely more standout performances. And I actually, during scenes, they definitely showed a lot of potential and some really good moments, especially Storch. Like, you really hate his character, and he does a good job playing that, like, lives a good life, but you can tell he's really a not good dude. The movie starts to falter when it comes to plot. The idea that Johnny would go as far as he did with Jennifer solely off the fact she rejected his pickup line and friend-zoned kissed his disabled friend is a little hard to believe and just makes his character the bad guy from the beginning. On top of this, the fact that his friends were so willing to help with no one objecting just shows how one-dimensional their characters are. The movie takes a very simple premise and stretches it out to a bit of an excessive length. And the movie definitely does drag a while toward the middle section. You're kind of just sitting there waiting for Jennifer to finally show up and quit toying with them. You just want Jennifer to show up, and I would have rather had the perspective been from Jennifer during that time than the guys. Like, I wanted to see what she was doing, how she was planning these crazy kills and stuff, not lingering around with Storch and the guys. The plot was very simple and mediocre, but the movie feels great and does have some scenes that show passion and vision. Since I'm feeling indifferent on this one, I'm going to give I Spit on Your Grave 2010 a C. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Give it a dislike if you did not. Comment down any suggestions or movies you want to do next. And I just appreciate it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I am out. I will see you in the next one. Peace.